than it was yesterday, especially in eastern England. And there'll still be a few holes in the cloud tonight, but that does mean a patchy frost across southern areas. The lowest temperatures are likely to be under the clearest skies in Scotland and northern England this time, and a -6, maybe -7 in the coldest spots, with one or two mist and fog patches around. With high pressure close by, a lot of fine but still rather chilly weather on the way for tomorrow. An area of cloud across Wales and England, drifting northwards, probably brightening up quite nicely though behind it, especially across East Anglia and the southeast, and a few patches of cloud reaching towards Northern Ireland and southern Scotland. This southeasterly wind will be stronger more widely, particularly across the south and west of the UK. But tomorrow, maybe some gusts up to around 40 miles an hour or so. And although we have plenty of sunny spells around, it will feel colder than this because of that brisk southeasterly wind. And there will be another frost for many as we start off on Tuesday morning. Now, it should be the end of the frost because after this, temperatures are going to be heading upwards. Eastern areas staying mainly dry on Tuesday. But here's a first Atlantic weather system beginning to push in. Some uncertainty about how far the rain will get during daylight hours, most likely to reach in towards Northern Ireland, maybe southwest Scotland, Wales and western parts of England with freshening wind, whereas the east stays mainly dry. Still feeling chillier than this in the breeze. The temperatures are set to rise for the remainder of the week as we see further low pressure systems bringing further wetter windy weather, particularly across the western side of the UK. But rather than the southeasterly wind we're starting the week with, it's more of a south-southwesterly wind that of course is a milder direction, so quite widely during the second half of the week we're expecting temperatures to be into double figures as a result. So it starts chilly this week and some frost to contend with, but then after that temperatures are heading up. But as we've established, that does mean there'll be some wetter, windier conditions at times, especially in the west.
Download the BBC News app now and get the latest headlines as they happen. Personalise your app to learn more about the stories you care about and watch BBC News live wherever you are. Stay up to date, whatever you're up to. Download the BBC News app.
This is BBC News. Welcome, whether you're watching here in the UK or around the globe. I'm Sean Lay. Good to have your company this hour. Our top stories. Civilians in Ukraine have been fleeing for their lives under the relentless bombardment just 25 kilometres now from the capital city.
Severe attacks on the civil population, including carpet bombarding of the cities, which are basically happening these days already in some cities, will be taking place, and thousands of new civilian victims will be in Ukraine.
A second attempt to evacuate civilians from the besieged city of Mariupol has failed after a similar plan was abandoned yesterday due to continuing fighting. The United Nations says 1.5 million people have already fled Ukraine. The US offers to help ease the fastest growing refugee crisis since the Second World War. Are you printing some scripts? Thank you very much. Some more protests on the streets of Russia. 3,500 people have been arrested in protests across the country, according to the Russian news agency TASS. Hello, warm welcome to the programme. We begin, of course, with the north of the capital. Soldiers have been digging trenches and blocking roads with anti-tank obstacles. The towns of Bucha, Hostomel and Irpin have been under heavy bombardment. Civilians trying to flee the fight have been killed by Russian mortar fire. Meanwhile, the social media platform TikTok says it is suspending live streaming and new content in Russia, citing the fake news that is being spread around the country on the platform. American Express has suspended all operations on Sunday. Ukraine now, where our colleague Ilana Hakim spent the afternoon in Lviv and gave us the latest.
Well, let's bring you up to date on the ongoing conflict here in Ukraine. The Ukrainian authorities say towns northwest of the capital Kiev are under relentless bombardment, with intense fighting between government forces and Russian forces. Let's just show you where the fighting is on this map. The heaviest fighting is said to be focused on suburbs just 25 kilometers northwest of Kiev. Meanwhile, a new temporary ceasefire to evacuate thousands of civilians in the besieged southern city of Mariupol appears to have collapsed after just 2 hours. This is the second day in a row that it has failed, and the UN says millions of people are trying to flee this country, the fighting that continues in the north, the east and the south of the country. But we have the very latest report from Jeremy Bowen.
Russian shelling might break Ukraine's will to fight, but not yet. They had to keep moving. Until the last minute, these families had hung on. Leaving your home, even in a war, is a giant step. They're heading towards the capital, still almost untouched, but only about 10 miles away. She was as dignified as a woman striding to the park. In fact, like all of Ukraine and Russia, they are struggling into a dark future. Ukrainian troops were moving back into Irpin, and this is why its people left. This was inside the town, Russia's target as it tries to revive its offensive. The civilians are getting out over what's left of a bridge that was blown to slow down the Russians if they take Irpin. Russian shells were very close. Stopping was not an option. I'm okay, she said. Keep going. The disabled man couldn't make it up the steep riverbank on his own. There's a fair amount of incoming fire coming into this now. Artillery fire, there are loads of civilians around. Families coming out, there's a lady there with her dog, following on. This is the edge of the town that the Russians have got to. Civilians were in the firing line, but the Russians might have been trying to knock out nearby active Ukrainian artillery. Casualties and evacuees were taken to an assembly point in a suburb about a mile away. As well as wounded soldiers, at least one family was killed. Vladimir, 85, a 30-year veteran of the Soviet army, got his family out. I served for many years, he said. Right now, I tear those fascists into pieces. They're killing people for no reason. That's what's really painful. On the way out, families grabbed their most precious things. Puppies, pets, some comfort. Tell me what it was like crossing the bridge, getting out.
Oh, it was a miserable feeling. We are nervous. I was terrified. It was the horrible way.
They moved on into the capital. This was a terrible day, but the Russian military is operating on half power. If it can build up full momentum, there will be many days worse than this. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, Kyiv.
Well, as we've been reporting in the last couple of days, an attempt to create a ceasefire in the southern port city of Mariupol has broken down twice. Yesterday we heard reports reports from the Russian Defense Ministry that they would put a partial ceasefire in place and create a humanitarian corridor. But authorities in Mariupol said that that humanitarian corridor never took place, that there was still shelling on civilians who were trying to flee, and they halted that evacuation. There was a second attempt today to try and get civilians out of that besieged city, and that too failed. Now, UK Defence Intelligence has said that Russia's blaming of the ceasefire breakdown is probably an additional attempt to diminish responsibility for